Hey yo, you are tuning in to another episode of the Make Mondays Interesting podcast. I'm your host, Denzel Gaga. This is a God-given talent production, and we are brought to you by my family's business, Familiar Accountants, financial solutions for you and your family. Now, today is a special episode. Last week on the show, I had a high school friend of mine, Olan, join me. And I asked her, what were things that we wish we learnt in high school? And one of the things that she spoke to me about was she wished she learnt networking. And so on today's episode, I have a guest who is an expert in networking. Her name is Christie. Christie, how are you going today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah?
It's a lovely day here on the Gold Coast. The sun is shining, so we're very blessed.
We're very blessed. I just want to say thank you so much for coming in and being part of the show today. I really want to ask you questions around the topic of networking, but we might go somewhere else with however the conversation leads.
Sure.
But I'm excited to have you on.
Yes.
Are you excited to be on?
I'm very, and thank you. I feel honoured to be a guest on your podcast, Denzel. So hopefully we can give some good values, nuggets of gold for your guest last week and a lot of other high school or students or young people that are struggling with networking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so good. So my first question I want to ask you is, what is the importance of networking?
The importance of networking. Look, networking, a phrase that I've always used to say is your network is your net worth.
Ooh.
And I say that because I studied a film degree when I finished high school because I wanted to make a positive influence on a global scale. And the way that I could do that was through media. If we look at some of our biggest players in the market, even Hitler to a terrible extent, he really took over the media for a negative way and sort of convinced people to have a certain viewpoint of somebody. And my goal in life is always to leave a positive legacy, and I think through media, through film, through radio, and you can make that positive difference. And the reason I mentioned my film degree is because film is a very challenging industry to make a break, especially as a female. And it is very much a luck of the draw situation. It is who you know, and it is whether you're willing to go overseas even, because Australia is a very competitive marketplace. But I had to learn very, very easily, very, very quickly how to network. And I probably, as I was driving here today, thinking about networking and perhaps why I have become a bit of a connector as I've grown up, is that I went to about 5 different primary schools and 2 different high schools, and we moved around a lot as a kid because my parents were teachers. And as you know, young people trying to fit in is always very hard. So I had to, every year make new friends. And so I grew a resilience to rejection, I suppose, as well as ways to fit in the best way that I could. And I guess I've taken some of those learnings from childhood into my adult life and, gone from there. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but
no, that's good.
There was a lot in there. So,
on that, when you talked about learning from, obviously going from different schools and making friends, in your opinion, the definition of networking, I think we usually tie networking to business and making business associates for the sake of advancing ourselves within the business industry. But is that just the definition of networking, or can networking be the definition of simply just making friends and making connections, regardless of what that might advance your business cause?
I actually think that you've made a really good, it's an excellent question from what I've been discussing. I think, unfortunately, people sometimes get it a little bit wrong. So they go to a networking event, and I think in life we're just naturally selfish people. But something that I've learnt that gets me further in life is to think outward, not inward. So whenever I look at going to a networking event, I see it as an opportunity to, make a new friend or make a new association. And through those friends, they may know a friend who could benefit from your service. So sometimes I have noticed when people go to a networking event and they meet someone and you kind of do your initial pitch, eyes sometimes glaze over because they kind of go, oh, well, that's not who I was looking for, so I'm going to move on to the next person fairly swiftly and disregard that person. At the end of the day, they are people. It doesn't matter if you're famous or if you're the key host or whatever you are. People are people, and so always go in with the intent of getting to know that person, not even worrying about what their professional background is, because by knowing that person, they may know other people who could always benefit from what you've got to offer. Yeah.
No, that's good. Because I think I've been to a few networking events myself, and the people that I've connected most to aren't the professional people that I was probably intending to connect with, but I've just made a good friend at these events.
That's right. And we can all do with more friends. Like, honestly, we're supposed to be a more connected world, as we were just having a bit of a chit chat before we started here. But through social media, I feel even sometimes less connected. I jump on some of the platforms and I get overwhelmed with, I guess there's sometimes a little bit of jealousy in there, to be honest with you, because everyone looks like they're having this, amazing life, but it is only that small section.
The highlight reel.
The highlight reel.
Yep.
Yeah. And as soon as they've turned the camera off, for maybe they're crying or something like that. But I just love sitting down with somebody, sharing a meal with them, and going with it. I actually saw I usually start the day, I've got a Bible app. I mean, we go to the same church, and I've really only sort of been really delving into, I guess, my spiritual or Christian journey in the last 2 years in particular. But funnily enough, yesterday the message was all about connection, and then I listened to a pastor speak about, he was an American pastor, and he went over to visit France, and his comment was, it's like Thanksgiving every day in France, because what they do is they sit and they enjoy a meal together. They put all their phones and their devices away, and they sit for hours on end just enjoying and relishing in the conversation and the food with people. And I think in Australia, in America, we're all too busy, and we don't enjoy in the friendship and the real deep connections with people anymore. There's a real disconnect. So, that's something lacking in today. Then I think we can take on a little bit more of that French culture of really connecting with people.
I find that interesting that you brought that up, because I'm kind of in that same situation of feeling, I think about my time in the Philippines. Yeah. It's that family culture and always being together and sitting down with a meal. I think it's very much a Western, or more so that Australian and American, that more Western English speaking, because France is still considered Western, but the Western English speaking culture is very a disconnected culture, where we're not getting together and eating meals together and just being friends and being a community. So
that's exactly right. I mean, your mum hosted a beautiful Thanksgiving dinner at the end of last year.
Shout out to her.
Yeah, which was just beautiful, because I met some new people there, and it was just so fun to enjoy good food and genuine connection with people without an agenda. Yeah. And that's another thing I probably would like to say to people, is that when you do go to a coned networking event, perhaps don't go with an agenda, and don't put too much pressure on yourself that you had to connect with that person. Another good example of why network is really, really crucial is that in my adult life, most of my jobs have come through people I've known. And I've met these people usually through a networking event or through the networks that I've developed over time. So from my childhood, when I used to have to go to school, I learnt very quickly that you need to join an association or somewhere where there's like-minded people. So, for example, when I was in Brisbane and I was the president of the Brisbane Junior Chamber of Commerce for some time, when I first arrived in Brisbane, I went to major bodies that were professional bodies that would have similar minded, driven, ambitious people.
Yep.
And I wanted to connect with them so that I could make friends, but also develop my business network. And then as soon as I moved to the Gold Coast, I felt really sad because I'd built this fantastic network in Brisbane. And then I had to start all over again at the Gold Coast. And so what I did is, again, I joined the Gold Coast Chamber of Commerce. I volunteered to be on the board there because by contributing from a volunteer perspective, you then meet a lot of people then, and then it flows from there.
Yeah.
So, that's all. I've sort of lost the train of thought now, but anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think where you're kind of going is this the whole sense of how far networking has taken you in your life.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because I was kind of thinking about the conversation from the last episode.
Yeah.
I kind of brought up the point that one thing I remember, he wasn't really a teacher, but he wasn't the principal. He one of those up there leaders within the school or something. He kind of made that comment about, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And the irony about it is they're not teaching us in terms of how important that is. That's just, to him, that's just a throwaway comment because he just said it without, okay, so what does that look like practically? Because like you said, it's gotten you far where it's gotten you jobs. Would you say all your jobs have come from networking?
To a certain extent. I'll give you another example of a real life, very recent situation is I did go to a networking event. It was their first networking event here on the Gold Coast. I went there with the intent of meeting this other person who actually knew of these other people, which was a company I was really aspiring to work with. And when I went to this event, and then we went to the moment of sitting down, I immediately went to sit next to this particular person. And I don't know why, but she actually got up and left as soon as I sat next to her. I know, well, right? Okay. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's a bit rude. But anyway, but it was perhaps a blessing in disguise because the next person who came over to speak with me was so friendly, and it turns out that he had a radio background similar to myself. And so we got talking, and then through the conversation, he was like, I work for the best boss in the world. I've never worked for anyone better. And he puts me through all these education. And from his mentorship, he then bought a house, and his life has completely changed. And I was like, wow, man, this dude sounds pretty cool, and I should investigate this place. But the next day on Seek was a job for this company with this guy, which was a real blessing. And then I read the description of the job, and initially I went, there's too much there. I don't know whether I'm capable. But I gave this guy a call and I said, hey, I saw this job, and we talked it through, and then it seemed like I was a perfect person for the job because they were looking for somebody with a film background, with a radio background, with event management experience, with marketing and social media experience. And I actually went, oh my goodness, perhaps my whole career to date has led me into this particular job because it's actually utilizing all of my skills. So that's a great example of how one networking event, and probably my drive as well, because then I created a custom CV and an animated video for these people. So it was sort of both things. But I digress because I wanted to go back to your question before, which was about your previous guest and being a student and not being taught how to network at school. I used to be a teacher as well, so I'm very familiar with, I think some of the lacking in the school curriculum to prepare people for adult life, like just general
life skills.
There needs to be a whole course in kind of life skills. Mind you, kudos to teachers these days in the whole schooling system, because it just continues to expand. But I always enforce that on my students. And I remember I was relief teaching there for some time, and I was teaching a film group, and I only got a few days with this media group, which I was disappointed with, because I would have loved to have taught them a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I always ask them, so what's your intent? Are you wanting to go on and study film? And I remember one young fellow, and he goes, yes, I do want to, I'm going to go and study film. And I said, fantastic. What do you think the best way to get a job in film is? And he goes, oh yeah, well, I'm going to go and study this TAFE thing, and then I'll try and get a job after that. And I said, what is the most important thing in film? Denzel, do you know what's the most important thing? Like, what would be probably an even better starting point for, like, to get into film?
Rhetorical question or like literature question?
Yeah.
Because I would say, I think the best way to get into film and photography, anything, is just doing it. You don't need the degree to start doing it. You just got to start doing it. Collaboration.
Yep.
Of collaborating with people that are in your area that are doing film.
Yep.
It's like,
yep.
oh, you know, because that's
this keeps going on.
That's all good. Because for me, I'm in that film and whatever you call it industry.
Yeah.
Where I've been doing videos, and I think the people that have inspired me the most, or that have grown my skills the most, are the people that I've met on the journey. You know, the editing software I have costs about, I think, $600. I met this guy who bought it himself, and then was like, you know what, I'm just going to give it to people for free because I've got the file, and
wow.
it's not piracy. So hopefully I don't get caught when I say this on the camera. But it was like, because I collaborated with this guy who was like a much better videographer than I was. But I was just like, yeah. And that's my answer to your question.
Yeah.
It's the fact that it's not about just studying. It's about doing it and just going out of your comfort zone. Studying can advance your skills 100%.
You need to have the foundations there. But I said to him, go out and volunteer. Get into an industry, get into a network, and it's people that you know that will escalate you. And funnily enough, I saw him a couple of months ago, and this would be a year later, and I said, oh, so did you go off? And he goes, yeah.
So he did graduate?
Yes,
yep.
He did graduate, and then he went in to study film. And I said, do you remember what I said to you about what is the most important thing that you needed to do? And he goes, oh, work hard? No. Study? No. All this stuff. And I'm like, dude, did I not teach you? Did I not give you anything? And I said, your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, yeah. I said, well, start networking, mate. Just start getting your name out there.
Was he studying?
He was studying film. Yeah, he was studying film where you went, can't remember where it was. But, and while that's important, as soon as from day one, you start building that network in the film world and in any sort of world. Yeah.
No, it's important because, like, you can say you've got all the skills in the world, but if they don't know you, they can't really, in a way, trust if you actually have those skills. Anyone can write anything on a CV.
That's right.
Anyone can say anything.
Yeah.
So if you're not known, there's no trust.
Yeah.
It's like trust is built not on just talent; it's built on connection.
Yeah.
In that relationship.
That's exactly right. So, probably just going back to networking as well. So I used to run networking events, and Michelle, your mum, came to a few of them. And the reason I started my particular LinkedIn local events, which then transitioned into something called the Business Connect event, is that I've been to a lot of networking events over time, and I noticed something that was missing within all the networking events that I went to, because I'm a bit of an introverted extrovert, and what I noticed is all the extroverts is having the time of their lives going to these networking events and meeting people, and they can easily transition into a group of people that are talking. But for some of us that are a little bit uncomfortable or a little bit more Shire, they didn't have somebody guiding them into a conversation with somebody. So I rearranged the whole structure of my networking events for the first part of it to be more about getting to know the person, and you weren't allowed to mention what you do for work, because if people got to know the person themselves, then they might actually realise that they're more connected than they thought.
That's a good way of doing it. You can't say your job.
No, and I also, because I used to run speed dating events, so this is probably where it all really came in, but I'd give everybody a conversation starter question so that you didn't have to come up with it yourself, because just humans being lazy as we are, or we go to our comfort. So every time you meet someone, so what do you do? And that already closes into a business question. Whereas if you ask them something about, where's the favourite holiday you've ever had, or, what's your favourite food, then you start connecting. So the first part of my events are usually about that real deep human connection type thing. And then the next sort of part of that phase does transition to the business, because I know that everyone's there, we're time poor, and they want an outcome. So the next part, I used to invest a lot of time into it, but I would try and mix up the group. So the first part you're sitting with a certain amount of people, and the second section then you sort of rotate so that you're speaking to another group of people, and this is more focused on pitching your business. So everybody had to come with their pitch in mind, and that's something else that I think a lot of people don't do enough of, really get their pitch defined, so that when they're networking, people know who they are, what they do, and who they do it for, so that you can then introduce somebody. So that's then pitching. And then the third part of my events is usually where you move again and you meet a new group of people. But I group like-minded businesses, so all the accountants will be in one group, and then all the lawyers will be in another group, and they actually talk about common industry problems that's affecting them and how they can progress or solve some of those problems. So because people don't look at venture partnerships, they look at others as competition, when it should never be competition, because every business has a different specialization. And just because you're a web designer, for example, you might cater to this group of people, whereas somebody else might cater to this group of people. And what would the world be like if we actually helped a mate out and referred that business, because that's not your jam, but it's somebody else's jam. And if you direct that person to that and they do it back, then what a lovely world, Yeah. So it's not just about you getting business. It's about perhaps venture partnerships and how you can help out others in your industry to connect to them with the right people. So it's a formula that seems to have worked, and a lot of people have given me good feedback that they've actually built, got some really good leads out of that.
To me, it sounds really good. That's interesting, that first bit, the whole, you can't talk about what you do. And it's just because I think even with networking, because we go in the intention of, I'm going to meet some business contacts, and we're going to, do a group project together that will help advance something bigger, something that's some sense. Sometimes it might just be finding new clients. But it's like, you might get that client, or you might get that collaborative person you want to do with. But then when you might start working with them, you might find out, I actually don't like this person. So you kind of need to know, do I like this person?
Yeah.
Before I know, that what they do, what they can offer me.
We do business with people we know, like, and trust. Yeah. That's another catchphrase that you would have probably heard a lot, but it's really true. Like, I wouldn't mind paying a little bit more or whatever, but I trust that person that they're going to do a good job. They're a good person. They're a good bloke, good Sheila, whatever. Yeah. Like, very Australian there, but, so. Yeah.
No, that's good. So now that you said that's kind of like what you run, now not every event's like that. correct? Not every network event that you're not hosting, you've gone to is like that.
Oh, I've never seen anything like my events, to be honest. And yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to ask then, is if you're in that environment of, a bit, you could say run a bit poorly, where it's not as structured with the whole, you can't tell anyone what you do. So if you're in that environment, what are the tips and tricks to network in that environment?
Yeah, that's not
because that's the common environment.
That is the common
that
environment
we'll be networking in.
Very, very good question. So my advice is reach out to the person who has organised the event prior to the event to see what sorts of people might be there. Introduce yourself, really get to know that event leader, and also probably suggest to them who you would like to meet or what you would like to gain from the event, because a lot needs to go on the shoulders of the event host, I think, as well, and they need to start being a little bit proactive as to how they introduce the people that are attending. So first of all, reach out, find out what the event's all about and the purpose of it. Second of all, I would really be clear on your pitch and be able to alter that pitch depending on who you're speaking with. Okay, so find out all about them. So the pitch, reaching out to the person, finding out the industries, and quality over quantity. So a lot of people go in and they just try and scattergun. Oh, yep, nah, you're not going to be a prospect. Next. And that's just rude for a start. But also you don't really dive deeply into someone, who they are, and what you could maybe do. Yeah. So, and the other big thing, I suppose, for a shy person is if everybody's already in their group kind of thing, that's the hard thing of trying to
clickiness of things.
Everyone's comfortable, and I understand that. And so I guess you probably need to just shake off any of your fears and just be a brave person, and no one will really reject you. And if they do, well, that's more reflective of them than you. So if you are standing on your own, or even if you notice someone else standing on their own, try and involve them in the conversation. So maybe if everyone became more aware of everyone else, and even if you're in a conversation and you're pretty comfortable, use your peripherals, and if you can see anyone else, try and find a way to bring them in. So
No,
I don't know if that answers your questions, but there's probably 3 to 4 things there if I was to summarize. So it's connecting with that event host, making sure that your pitch is right, quality over quantity. So pick a few people and just really engage with them. The other big thing is, of course, connect with them on LinkedIn, or definitely get a business card so that you can follow up with those people, and keep going to some events, because the more that you get to see people, the more trust that you will build. But also be selective with what events that you go to as well.
Do you often see the same people at different events?
Yeah. It is a common thing, which is a good thing, and sometimes a challenging thing, because you're like, so I think you kind of try and pick your battles a little bit, and because we don't have the time anymore, and we also like to spend it with our family and friends as well. So does that answer your question?
No, that's good.
Yeah.
I think it's important what you said, that spending time with family, because I think we can get caught up in the whole, even you said it earlier, how we can become selfish. So we're in this business mindset of, okay, I got to get to all these events and these events and these events to network, to find prospective clients, and where we're just ends up becoming too much, and we're overdoing it. We're neglecting the responsibilities of just general life.
Yeah.
Like being with family, or even just doing everything else, the chores that need to be done at the house.
Yeah.
So, no, that's good in terms of that. I think I'm going to ask about the business pitch. What is your tips for the business pitch? And like how long are we pitching for, you know?
So elevator pitch, have you heard of the elevator pitch?
Heard of the elevator pitch.
Do you know the origins of it?
Not the origins of it. But
you'll enjoy
I'm
this.
assuming the origins, because I know a little bit about it. Isn't it all the tech startups and you got, you know, or maybe I'm just confusing it with other people to explain the elevator pitch, where obviously you're up in an elevator and you see the boss and then you got to pitch to them this new concept I'm working on, because you only got a few seconds with the boss.
Well, you've only got those couple of levels.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That must be the modern one. But originally it came from like in America where you had a film idea, a film script, and you happened to you knew that producer, the only time that you could actually get their time was to launch on them in the lift because you had their undivided attention. They couldn't not listen to you. So you had 30 seconds or whatever it was to actually pitch your film idea or script. And if it wasn't, you know, hot, you'd lost them by the time that they'd gotten out of the elevator. Exactly the same as a startup. Yeah. But a pitch shouldn't be any more than 30 seconds. But as I sort of said before, and I'm no pitch expert, I know definitely some people like Swish on the Gold Coast are very good with this sort of stuff. But it's about being very clear about who you are, why you do what you do, and who your target market is. Because if you meet me at a networking event and you're very clear about your niche and who you're doing it for, I can then think, oh, I could introduce you to that person. However, if I'm not clear about what you actually do, then how am I possibly going to help you to introduce you to a client that might benefit from your service? So a lot of people are very generalist in their pitch as well. So you've got to really niche down and to really identify what your client avatar is and be able to tell others this is who you're looking for and this is who you help. Yeah.
Cool. What's your pitch?
Oh gosh, don't ask me that.
It's an interesting question.
Yeah, it is, but I haven't practiced it, so you've got me.
Caught you off guard.
Yeah, you've caught me off guard.
Fair enough.
I might. I might just.
Well,
skip that
at
one.
at least now that I'm talking to you, at least I can. Okay, now I've got to think about my pitches and I got to work on my pitch and practice my pitch and, yeah. I've got to have one in mind because that's a good point. I think often when everyone asks me what I'm doing, I have stuff in mind, but how my mind works, it's so many ideas.
I know, me
all
too.
over the place.
Me too.
It's like, okay, how do I compile all those ideas into something simple for you? And so it's never a consistent answer to when people ask me, which I need to work on.
That's right.
Which this conversation has inspired me to do so.
Oh, good.
Talking to you. And yeah, but I think it's important to have that pitch in mind. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. 30 seconds, have a script, write it down if we need to. Another interesting point, I've heard this being talked about a lot about the elevator pitch, is that so I think I was listening to another podcast or someone talking about it where they were talking about how there was someone that gets pitched to in an elevator. And they said, one thing that annoys me is that every time they come into an elevator, they waste 30 seconds. They waste, X amount of time of that 30 seconds on, can I tell you my pitch? Can I tell you my pitch? Can I tell you my pitch? Can I tell you my pitch?
Just do it.
Yeah, just start.
Just get into it.
You just have to get in the elevator. Hi, I'm Denzel.
This is what I do.
This is what I do. This is my script or something. Not, can I get your permission to talk about it? Because that's 10 seconds wasted of the 30 seconds.
That's exactly right. So just launch into it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So have you ever had to do an elevator pitch? Have you ever been in an elevator where you're like making a pitch or no?
No, but I do it at networking events all the time. And in my last application, I'd written it and I had the voiceover. So, naughty me, I didn't learn my pitch and I should have learnt my pitch. So that's a big thing that I would say to everyone. But I haven't networked for a while because I've been mainly focused on the marketing side of things, and the salespeople usually get the pleasure of going out to those networking events. So,
Plus we're in an online world.
Yeah. We are in an online world. Yeah.
which kind of transitions to my next question is then, because we are now mostly online, and I feel like, we're kind of returning to some in-person events. But then again, as we just saw, not too long ago, anything can just easily be shut down like that. An event can be cancelled. And so we are still very much online. And I don't see it anytime soon of just completely gone away from that online. The world we're in right now is the world we're in right now.
Yeah.
It's not changing back to what it was.
Yeah.
As hopeful as we all want to be about that. That's a different conversation. But I want to ask is, how do we network in an online world? Because we are now an online world, and there is no going back to what we used to be.
Yeah. Exactly the same principles. So for 2 years there, I had my own business, Connection Kernel, and that was basically about building your profile using LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my preferred social media of choice because it's all about education. It's it's with professional people, and you're always learning something new, and you're getting really big nuggets of gold. But what I actually noticed was people weren't leveraging LinkedIn enough to do exactly what I was talking about that you do in person, which is all about connecting. So many people on LinkedIn say you've connected with them, and then the next message is some sort of pitch. And I'm like, you've actually really turned me off there. So I'm going to, I even look at, disconnecting from them then, because I'm like, well, this is how it's going to be. You haven't even followed me. You didn't do a personalized message, that sort of thing. So with online networking, especially I'll use LinkedIn as an example. Always when you reach out to connect with somebody, have a personalized message there. And again, it's quality, not quantity. So really think about who you want in your professional network there on LinkedIn or any of your social media or whatever you're doing, and reach out to those people. Take the time to actually engage in conversations, and even with webinars or Zoom groups or any of those online conferences, it's all exactly the same. It's just slightly different because you don't have the physical things. So yeah. Don't know, does that answer your question?
No, that's good.
So it's applying the same principles that you do in real life to online, and investing time in people. Yeah.
No, it's good because I think it is very stock standard or very stock standard, where we look at things like LinkedIn, for example, as a business networking site, which it is, and it's good for it. I use LinkedIn and I do enjoy using it. But like those messages annoy the heck out of me. It's just this, hi Denzel, that's the only personalization about it, is my name. And he's just like this very long message that I just don't even read anymore.
Exactly.
And it's like, it's good that you say that we have to apply the same principles that we do in a physical world to an online world, that we're making connections of like just getting to know the person simply, and then
follow what they're talking about, engage in what they're posting. Another big thing on LinkedIn, and I'm even guilty of this, but don't always put your own content out there. You need to engage with other people and comment on their things and share in what they're saying, because there's so much there's too much content anyway. Like, invest maybe 60 or 70% of your time in engaging in other people or people that you would like to do business with or even just connect with as a friend, and then 30% of your own generation, and they'll give back. So it's all, if you start following and commenting on them, then they give back to you. So that's a really good process to follow.
No, that's good. LinkedIn is a very fascinating site.
A lot of people don't know how to use it well.
Yeah.
I don't get Insta, but I might be a bit old. I don't know, but I don't get some of those other platforms as well. So, but anyway, that's a whole new conversation.
I think every platform is quite hard to network on, regardless, or just every platform is hard to break into.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a. It's funny when people talk about, there is a formula, which there is formulas for all these different algorithms and stuff. But as soon as you figure it out, they change it again and make it a completely new algorithm and new formula. It's like, if it's going to keep doing this, I'm never going to learn.
So if we go back to the topic of this particular podcast, I don't call it networking, I call it connecting. And if you change the actual word networking to connecting, that has a whole different connotation, as far as I think. So if I'm going to go out to connect with somebody, I'm trying to reach out to the basic human needs of connection, which is after food, shelter, and, water. So, yeah, just, I guess, have that in mind. And whenever you step into a networking or connecting event, connect with somebody.
Yeah. Like,
really reach out, and maybe 2 or 3 people that you just genuinely connect with. And don't have a hidden agenda.
Yeah.
Get your pitch right, and you never know what might happen.
That's so good, connection. I think... that talk about that social media topic, it's like when social media first came onto the scene, the basic concept was to connect people from different parts of the world, and now it's completely changed to just sharing content, and it's kind of lost its purpose. And then now so far we've changed ourselves. Humans have changed, where yes, it's important. We all know that we need to connect because that's part of our human desire. But we've evolved to thinking that it's less about that and more about advancing our own ideas and the selfishness, which in a way leads to a feeling of lacking. I'm not getting connections with people, and I'm focusing too much on not connection of creating content or something. And
the problem is money, Denzel. At the end of the day, I think, Facebook and those social media started exactly spot on as a connection thing. Like, wasn't it like he was at uni or something and he was looking at ways for friends to connect and that sort of thing, and then it evolved from there. So the original concept was fantastic, brilliant, a modern way of actually deeply connecting with people. And then you needed to monetize that. And then that came with sponsorships and ads, and then constantly continues to evolve. And now you can't look at anything online without getting some sort of ad.
Yeah.
Or having a conversation in the office about fish and pets, and then all of a sudden getting...
Yeah. That, for anyone wondering, that was a conversation we were having before
Just before we started. So,
Yeah, it's so true. But then that's like... when we go to networking events, we've just become the same thing. It's just about the money. It's about what clients are we getting. It's no longer about human connection anymore. This world has changed.
So I think we're responsible. If every individual maybe went back to the real basic needs, and if we can try and forget about money a little bit, like change your priorities.
Yeah.
And do good for people. Because you don't die with money. Exactly, that's good.
I'm glad that we're talking about this, because it actually happens to be my next episode.
Oh wow,
next week.
There you go.
Just so happens to be the conversation in mind, a bit more in detail, but yeah. So who knows? We're kind of linking this season of every episode is leading to the next one.
Wow,
conveniently.
There you go. It's organic.
It's organic. We won't talk for much longer. But I just want to ask in terms of like, I'm trying to think, what is this world like, in regards to, let's talk about this connection. So we're talking about the importance, the human desire of connecting, and even in a workplace environment, I'd like to talk about this connection. How important is it in connecting with fellow employees, not just in the work environment, but outside of work environment?
Incredibly important. Like if you are in a work environment that is a bit toxic, and I have been in some of those environments, it makes every day a struggle. I think it's important to invest times in getting to know people. Like, I'm a very task-orientated person, which can sometimes be to my detriment, because I'll come into work and I'll just go straight to my office and I'll get into all the tasks that I have to do. But then at the end of the day, sometimes I'm going, oh, everyone's having a good conversation around, downstairs and having a bit of a laugh and that sort of thing, and you become a little bit isolated. So I think it's important to schedule into every day some sort of investment in another team member, and to socialise outside of it. But also I think it comes from the top sometimes. So the culture that is embedded from leaders is also really important. So yeah, it's always about investing time in really truly connecting with people. That's all networking is.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be limited to an event outside of work. It can be within our work as well.
It could be at work, it could be at church, it could be at events, it could be even your family and your friends.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
'Cause even with the family and the friends, or with the work environment or a church environment, not just an organized networking event, it's like you might meet someone with a common interest, and you might one day together work on something together.
That's right.
Like,
work doesn't have to be boring either.
Yeah.
Like, it's 80% of your life, so make sure that it's fun and it's with people you like and trust, and you can have a good time with.
Yeah, exactly.
Change the world. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's good. But hey, I want to say a massive thank you for you coming on the show.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed this conversation, hearing your thoughts on things about connection, about networking. What is it?
Your network is your net worth.
Your network is your net worth.
Net worth.
Love that.
And if you break that down, I'll leave that as a nugget. And the other thing I just forgot to mention is going back to your high school friend last week. I would advise any high schoolers to jump on LinkedIn, set themselves up with a profile, and start engaging with companies that you would want to work for. And, if you have to go and study at university, do it. Or can you get an internship at one of those companies and start looking at what that brand stands for? So you can be proactive, young person. You don't have to wait for a teacher to teach you how to do this. I'd be jumping on LinkedIn or any of those professional networking environments. Start to follow some industries or some CEOs or somebody that you would like to work with, and your face starts popping up. And lo and behold, a year later, you could have a job in your ideal environment. So start taking responsibility for yourselves and stop waiting for people to hand out things for you as well. Don't put so much pressure on the schooling system. They've got enough to do. Yeah. So a bit of initiative from young people as well would be really good.
Proactiveness, initiative, all very good points to add to. Well, basically, that's what connection is.
It's connection.
It's, if you want to make a friend, you got to go out of your way to talk to that person or do something for that person, and the friend makes.
Actually, another thing that I heard, and you can just grab this if you want, but go out to be a friend, not find a friend. And
that's good.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. If you go out to try and be a friend, you'll come back with 10. If you go out to find a friend, you'll probably come back with none. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that even in the sense of, I know I said we're going to wrap up soon, but now you've just opened up another can of worms that I want to ask about with the networking side of things. How does that apply?
It's the same principle as what I said earlier, because I said quantity over quality. Yeah. So go out and don't have an agenda, and just because they come from this environment, which may not seem like a business prospect, you don't know their story. So, yeah. If maybe that's my other thing with networking, go out to be a friend, not find a prospect. Yeah. Don't call them a prospect.
That's a good point. Yeah. I think you can now say it's like, in those events, those networking events, go and be someone of value to someone else. Yeah. Not looking for people to bring value to you.
That's what you should do in life. If you think outward, not inward, which I'm trying to do, even though I'm human, very human.
Hey, we're all guilty of thinking inward first.
Yeah. Because it's survival of the fittest. But I think we need to do more of that as a society. And if everybody thought of others instead of ourselves, then you get the same impact, or you get a much more positive impact.
What the world would be like if it was everyone was for each other. Yeah. It'd be a very interesting world.
I like what the Beatles sort of tried to jam. Yeah. Anyway,
So good.
thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you so much for being on the show once again. I appreciate the conversation we had. And hey, if you are listening / watching on any of the platforms that we are on, again, thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed what was said today. I hope that you take out all the pieces of gold, because there was a lot of it, in this conversation and apply it to your own life. So I can ask, if you enjoyed it, please engage with us. That means like the video, share this episode, comment on the YouTube platform. And because the more people who engage with us, the more people we can reach. And the more people we can reach means the more people we can make their Mondays more interesting. Because this is the Make Mondays Interesting show. As always, I'm your host, Denzel Gaga. This has been a God-Given Talent production, and huge thank you to Christy for joining me today.
My pleasure. All the best.
All the best.
Cheers.
Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.